Hey guys, tonight we travel somewhere delicate, perfumed, and absolutely perilous. The world of 18th century tea time. Imagine layers of ruffled linen, the distant clink of porcelain, and every single person in the room silently judging how you hold a spoon. The chairs are too elegant to sit in. The snacks are trapped beneath unspoken rules, and your survival depends entirely on whether you stir clockwise or counter. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I always love seeing the global tea party assemble. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrived precisely 6 minutes past the appointed hour, already unacceptable. The invitation said 3:30, which you assumed was casual, flexible. You thought wrong. Punctuality in this world is spiritual. Being late is interpreted not as poor planning, but as a moral failing. You've barely crossed the threshold and already the hostess is giving you that genteel smile that says, "Welcome. I shall remember this betrayal until death." You attempt a bow. Not too deep, you hope. Too deep is servile. Too shallow is arrogant. What you deliver is something in between, a weird hunchy dip that makes it look like you've just sneezed into your soul. Someone coughs in judgment, possibly a bishop. Your hat isn't helping. It's a perfectly serviceable hat, nothing garish, but it lacks plumage, lace, or political subtext. In this room, where hats are basically personality statements made of feathers, yours whispers something like middle-class melancholy. The butler takes your coat with the sort of expression you'd use if asked to handle damp socks. You're led down a corridor lined with slightly aggressive floral wallpaper and into the parlor, the room where it happens. And by it, we mean your social unraveling. The parlor is everything you feared and more. Everything gleams. The floor, the mirrors, the terrifying silver sugar bowl shaped like a lion mid-roar. Every surface looks polished with tension. The furniture is not for humans. It is for display. Chairs perch at angles no spine should accommodate. Cushions are embroidered with scenes of agricultural bliss, daring you to smudge them with your flawed presence. A faint trill of chamber music spills from a string quartet so dainty you suspect one of the violins is just for show. You're ushered toward the others. They sit like porcelain figures. Perfect posture, controlled expressions, and the kind of stillness that implies they've either achieved spiritual enlightenment or are holding in terrible gossip. Someone nods, you nod back. You consider speaking. Don't. Not yet. The hostess is seated beneath a massive portrait of herself, painted with such generous lighting that you wonder if the artist worked by candle or flattery. She smiles, sharp and decorative. "Do join us," she says. You choose the nearest chair. Mistake. There's an audible shift in the room. Not a word. Just the rustle of skirts and a collective inward gasp, like the room has been lightly slapped. You've sat too soon. And worse, in the wrong chair. You're now occupying a seat meant for someone with an extra hyphen in their surname. You rise, you apologize, you try to make it seem intentional, like you were simply inspecting the brocade. Lady Hemsworth raises an eyebrow. You don't know who she is, but you can feel in your bones that you've lost her favor for the next decade. Eventually, you're placed in a safe seat. The chair is stable, non-threatening, and, most damning of all, closest to the tea cart. This means you will be expected to help serve. This is not an honor, it is a test. As the tea arrives, dainty and steaming in porcelain cups so delicate, you fear the weight of your shame will crack them. You remind yourself to breathe. You think about your training. Except you have no training? You are a tea time imposter. And in 18th century society, that's about as forgivable as arson during a christening. You reach for a napkin. It's the wrong one. Not yours, not even close. It belongs to Lord Bellwether, a man so dignified his mustache seems to have its own peerage. He doesn't say anything. He just looks at you. And now you are no longer the late guest with the sad hat. You are the napkin thief. The tea hasn't even been poured. And already your downfall is underway. The tea cart rolls in like a slow-moving executioner, wheels creaking on the polished floorboards with the dramatic tension of an opening gavel. You try to appear composed, though your spine has become a single vibrating string of tension. Everyone is watching you. Not directly, of course. That would be uncouth, but indirectly, intensely, and with the precision of powdered predators. The cart itself is a masterpiece of floral violence. Porcelain cups gleam like tiny tooth traps. Saucers shimmer. The teapot is painted with cherubs doing questionable things with sugar canes. It's all so judgmental. Even the biscuits seem to have expressions. You're nearest, which means you must offer to serve. It's tradition. It's also sabotage. You reach for the pot. The hostess smiles with weaponized sweetness. "How gracious," she murmurs. Translation, let's see how badly you spill. The pot is heavier than you expect. Ceramic, full and shaped like a sleeping swan. You lift it slowly, carefully, remembering not to clink it against the cups. Clinking is a sign of nervousness, or worse, a foreign upbringing. You begin to pour. The stream is slightly off-center. It dribbles along the edge of the cup, hitting the saucer with a soft splash that sounds somehow obscene. Lady Braxton exhales sharply through her nose. You are now the reason her glove will never emotionally recover. You try again. This time the pour is better, steady, delicate. You pass the cup with two hands, one for service, one for penitence. Your reward? A nod from someone near the window. Possibly approval, possibly pity. Either way, you take it. You serve 3 more cups, gaining confidence, until you reach the teaspoons. Tiny, ornate, confusing. Each guest has one. None are using them. You hesitate. Then you place a spoon on the saucer of Lady Hemsworth. She recoils ever so slightly. Wrong. You were supposed to place it before pouring, never after. Placing it afterward implies you doubt the recipient's stirring instincts. That, or you're challenging them to a duel via teacup. You remove the spoon. Too late. The room has recorded your error like an ink blot on your soul. The hostess coughs into her lace handkerchief, a sound that says, "How quaint." She tried. You retreat to your seat, empty-handed and socially scorched. A servant sweeps in behind you and somehow refills everyone's cups in perfect silence and symmetry. You suspect witchcraft. Your own cup arrives by divine intervention. You thank the servant. They don't respond. They're not supposed to. Servants in this tier of tea society operate in a realm of unspoken gestures and delicate winks. Words are considered disruptive, like farting during a benediction. You lift your cup. It trembles. You will the tremor to still. You summon your ancestors. You summon every stable hand you've ever met. The cup calms. You sip. Too loudly. It's a subtle slurp, just a whisper of steam and suction. But in this room, it's an air horn. Lady Braxton visibly flinches. A parlor dog looks up in concern. Somewhere across the room, a priest crosses himself preemptively. You lower the cup. Try again. This time quieter, still wrong. You've committed the other sin. Too quiet. Now you seem calculating, deceptive, possibly French. You shift your grip, attempting a new tactic, the finger curl. Disaster. Your pinky lifts. Not a lot, just a twitch. A small instinctive rise. But the gesture, oh, the gesture, it is infamous. The raised pinky implies theatricality, false refinement. It's the finger of fraudulence. Historians still argue whether it originated from court jesters or overly enthusiastic duchesses. Lady Hemsworth gasps softly. Your pinky trembles. You try to lower it. It resists, like a flag raised against your will. You tuck your hand beneath the table, pretend to adjust your napkin. The pinky scandal is noted, filed, whispered behind fans. Someone coughs the word performative. You smile faintly. Which makes it worse? You're told to take a biscuit, but not from the top tray. The top tray is for decoration. The bottom tray is for heirs. You are cleared for the middle tray, which contains the delicate sweets meant for your exact social tier. You reach, too slowly, too hesitantly. You hesitate midair, hand hovering like a cursed claw. It's too late. The whole tray shakes, the biscuits rattle. One slides out of place, you correct it. Too fast. Now it's upside down. Aunt Belgravia, who hasn't spoken in 6 years, mutters, "Amateur!" You retreat with a scone. It's dry. Of course it's dry. You try to butter it. The knife resists. So does the scone. The butter is the kind of cold, unforgiving slab that's more political statement than condiment. You tear the scone in half. 2 halves. Crumb explosions. Your plate now looks like a battlefield in miniature. You smile apologetically. The hostess blinks twice. She's mentally revising her will. You sip your tea again. Now tepid. Now tragic. You hold the cup in both hands and try to look serene. You are not serene. You are spiraling. You are now that guest. And the tea cart hasn't even made its second round. You thought you were through the worst. You were wrong. Because just as you begin to think perhaps the tea's calming effect might drown out the faint hum of your social demise, a footman with a nose like a compass announces, "The hostess shall now inspect the seating." No one flinches, except you, because suddenly the room feels colder. Your chair seems smaller, and you realize that while the rules of conversation and teaspoon deployment were intimidating, the chair game is where reputations truly go to die. Seating in 18th century tea society is not just about where you sit. It's who you sit near and why. It's about titles, inheritances, and at least 3 ancestral alliances. Entire friendships have disintegrated over incorrect proximity to a duchess's cousin. And you with your unfortunate biscuit trajectory and lukewarm charisma, are 2 cushions too high. The hostess glides across the room like a swan who's just read something offensive. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. One look at your current placement, too close to the harpist, dangerously near the sugared almonds, and her fan flicks open like a guillotine. She turns to a footman. Was this seat intended? He looks at you. You look at him. He looks at the ceiling. I believe it, he says. The guest seated without direction. Translation, you chose your own seat. A gasp ripples through the furniture. Somewhere a doily sighs. You stammer. I thought it was open. Indeed, she interrupts. So are many misfortunes. She gestures elegantly. You stand. And now the relocation ritual begins. You must traverse the parlor, teacup in hand, dignity flaking off you like undercooked shortbread, to the seat you were meant to inhabit, near the back, next to a fern, across from a portrait of someone's ancestor who looks like they invented boredom. You sit, carefully this time slowly. Not too slowly. That would imply a dramatic exit. Not too quickly either. Hurried motion suggests guilt. You aim for that perfect gliding descent, but your heel catches the rug and you land with a gentle oof. The fern shudders. Across the room, Lady Braxton adjusts her monocle in judgment. From here, your view is limited to the tea cart's back end and a decorative screen painted with hunting scenes that appear to mock you personally. But you are at least properly seated now. You exhale. Wrong. Exhaling should be discreet, subtle. A breath, not a broadcast. You catch yourself. Too late. You've already been labeled a sire. One of the musicians, possibly a violist, definitely judgmental, starts plucking something that sounds suspiciously like a song of social dissent. You try to recover. You sip your tea. But you forget to bow slightly toward the cup before lifting it, an acknowledgement of its heat and status. The hostess notices. She does not comment. She does not need to. Her eyebrow does all the heavy lifting. You try to hide behind your napkin. It has a hole. Of course it does. You're now sipping mediocre tea from the shadows, seated beside a fern that smells faintly of moldy ancestry. You glance sideways and realize who you're next to. A young lady, no older than 17, whose hat is shaped like a pheasant mid-takeoff, and whose expression suggests she could dismantle you emotionally and still be home in time to oversee the lamb roast. She turns to you. Do you favor the Chinese blends? You panic. You nod. Too eagerly. You don't even know what that means. She narrows her eyes. Because I have heard such claims from those who lack conviction. You smile thinly, choosing survival over honesty. I find them contemplative. She considers this, then finally the ghost of a nod. You live for now, but the next volley is coming. She gestures toward the sugar bowl. Would you? You reach. The tongs are missing. You freeze. She waits. The sugar cubes glisten like traps. You know you can't touch them directly. Sugar is sacred. Sugar is expensive. Sugar is taxed so highly that entire political movements have risen just to avoid awkward conversations about it. You glance around. The tongs are across the room, left by someone with either a death wish or very sticky fingers. You improvise. You use your spoon. You lift a single cube, balance it, deliver it to her cup. It lands. A soft clink. She stirs. You have performed a minor miracle. The room remains quiet. Lady Braxton nods. The hostess sips. You've survived the cube exchange. Barely. And just when you start to think maybe, just maybe, you're gaining your footing, a voice across the parlor declares, "Shall we begin the lemon vote?" Oh no, you forgot about the lemon vote. You are once again entirely unprepared. The lemon vote. Two words that strike fear into the heart of anyone who has ever hesitated too long at a condiment tray. You shift in your chair, trying not to rattle the fern. It rattles anyway. Across the room, the hostess rises ever so slightly, just enough for the silk folds of her gown to signal that something deeply civil and thoroughly perilous is about to begin. Shall we, she repeats, and consider citrus? There is a rustle of agreement, a murmur of restrained intrigue. Someone dabs their forehead with a lace kerchief that may or may not have been blessed by a bishop. A silver tray is produced, ornate, hand-engraved, and gleaming with thin slices of lemon arranged like a sunburst of judgment. Each slice is uniform, about the thickness of a whispered insult, and each rests upon a doily stitched with the crest of house weathering on pickle. You know what this means. A decision must be made. Cream or lemon, but not both. Never both. The cream-lemon divide is the Grand Canyon of polite society. Where you stand on this issue says more about your character than your lineage, your poetry collection, or how many cousins you have on the continent. Lemon is for the brave, for the progressive, for those who nod approvingly at botanical gardens. Cream is for tradition, for buttery conversation, for those whose blood contains at least 3 drops of marmalade. You've already had cream. You realize this with the suddenness of a guillotine. And now they're offering lemon. And you must refuse. But how? To reject the lemon too bluntly is to insult the offer. Too softly and you imply regret, which implies indecision, which implies continental thinking. You reach for the tray, pause, and make your play. Alas, you say, cream has made her claim. There's a beat of silence. And then, the smallest, most imperceptible nod from Lady Braxton. You've passed. You will not be thrown into the herb garden. This time, the tray moves on, the air lightens. Someone resumes breathing. But you are not safe yet. Now comes the question of stirring. You've already stirred once. You shouldn't have. No one told you, of course, but that's how etiquette works. It's only visible after you've failed it. Stirring is only permitted after the first pour, and only if the sugar is added. You stirred out of nerves, no sugar, no purpose. It was performative turbulence. And now every ripple of your liquid betrays you. The hostess rises again. You steel yourself. This is it, the moment of your unmaking. But no, it's only time for the biscuit round. Silver trays emerge once more, this time bearing tiny confections so fragile they practically vanish if looked at too sternly. There are almond macaroons, lavender buttons, lemon drizzles, and something shaped like a hedgehog, likely filled with spiritual peril. The tray approaches. You are offered a selection. You must take one, only one. And it must not be the largest, the most colorful, or the hedgehog. You go for a lavender button. Safe, appropriate, moderately fragrant. You place it on your plate with the reverence of a sacred relic and prepare to wait, because you can't just eat it. Eating must be invited. A subtle signal from the hostess, often nothing more than a tilt of her teaspoon, or the moment she adjusts her gloves to a specific angle, will indicate that tasting may begin. The tray is passed. The room settles. Then her spoon tilts. You lift your biscuit and bite, too loudly. Crumbs fall like tiny failures across your plate. The lavender tastes like floral soap and distant regret. Someone coughs, not because they're choking, but because they need you to know you should have nibbled, not bitten. Nibbling is gentle, feminine. Biting is war. You set the rest of the biscuit down and pretend to be full of mystery. The girl beside you, pheasant hat, smiles slightly. Don't worry, she says softly. I once bit a cherry tart, and the filling hit a bishop. You smile. An alliance. A single sunbeam in your hurricane of shame. The music swells gently from the quartet. One of the musicians appears to be playing a triangle, not as part of the performance, but as a personal protest. And now the most dangerous round begins. The conversational volley. You are not required to speak. But if you do not, you seem dull. If you speak too soon, you're overreaching. If you wait too long, you've missed your turn. The conversation meanders. Garden varietals, cousin engagements, the tragic opera last Thursday, a footman's scandal involving apricots. Then someone turns to you. And what are your thoughts on the quality of this season's Darjeeling? The room stills. You panic. You've never had Darjeeling on purpose. You've had something labeled Darjeeling in a paper bag once. During a storm, you take a sip. You nod. Sprightly, you say, too vague. Forward but not impolite. Better, Lady Hemsworth murmurs. Indeed. The hostess blinks slowly. You have survived. Barely. But your cup is empty again. And that means you'll have to pour for yourself. And that, my friend, is a trap of an entirely different temperature. You know it the moment your cup touches the saucer. Just that soft porcelain kiss. You're out of tea. This would be fine. Normal, even. You could wait for a footman. You could signal the hostess. You could become mysteriously ill and flee the premises entirely. But none of those things happen. Because your hands' traitorous things are already moving. You are reaching toward the pot to pour yourself, which in this world is somewhere between bold and barbaric. The teapot is warm in your hands, familiar, heavy with consequences. You tell yourself, this is fine. I've poured before. I've been pouring since I was 4. But 4-year-old you wasn't being judged by a room full of powdered strategic alliances, wearing citrus-toned cravats. You glance at the hostess. She sees you. She does not stop you. That is worse than stopping you. That means proceed and be watched. You tilt the pot. The tea flows. But there's a catch. You're pouring first for yourself, and that is a violation. Because the rule is simple, hostess pours first, then closest guest, then clockwise by bloodline and scandal tier. Self-pouring is for orphans and pirates. You've just implied that no one else here deserves your service, that your thirst takes precedence, that you're a rogue tea anarchist. The cup fills. Too full. The rim trembles with tension. You place it back. It sloshes just a bit, but enough for one drop to roll down the side and land on your saucer. A drop that glistens like betrayal. Someone across the room inhales sharply. Lady Braxton's eyelid flutters like she's just seen a pigeon in trousers. You dab the drop with your napkin. Your napkin is now wet. You set it down. It slides damp and limp toward your tea cake. Everything is unraveling in half inches. To distract, you turn to the pheasant hat girl beside you. Lovely tea, you murmur. She nods, but not at the tea. At your saucer. And then at your hands. You've made another mistake. You're holding the cup incorrectly. Cup in fingertips, saucer in lap. Acceptable. Cup and saucer together. Suitable for open gardens. Cup in one hand, saucer missing entirely. Chaos. Your saucer is on the table. That you now understand is tantamount to social streaking. You retrieve it. Too quick. Your elbow nudges the sugar tongs. They fall. A clang. Silence. No one breathes. Even the dog under Lady Hemsworth's chair freezes like a taxidermy experiment. You pick up the tongs. Return them. Don't apologize. Apologies draw attention. You smile instead, weakly, just a hint. A flicker of, let's all forget that just happened. The hostess, gracious, ruthless, says, a lively hand is the mark of a generous heart, which in tea language means, try that again, and I'll have your family reassigned to the barley tier. You nod. You sip. Your tea is too cold now, and too strong, somehow bitter, possibly sentient. Your biscuit stares back at you with soggy judgment. Then another test, a second sugar cube. You've already had one, but now the footman offers you the tongs again, like a second chance or a second trap. You accept. You hover the cube over the cup, and you drop it. No splash, just a delicate plink. You did it. You stir, clockwise, once, twice, no more. You set the spoon down in the saucer, not beside it. That matters. Lady Hemsworth lowers her fan. She's watching, evaluating, possibly plotting. You're exhausted. You haven't blinked in 8 minutes. Your hands tremble. You haven't even tasted a sandwich. And now the second tier of treats arrives. Savories, miniature pies, tiny sandwiches shaped like puns. Something involving anchovy paste and ambition. You take one. Just one. The triangle one. A breath of approval from someone behind a curtain. But then you take a second, without invitation. And now you've committed what scholars refer to as snack gluttony. Even though no one is truly full at tea, no one shows hunger. Appetite is a lower class emotion. You stare at the 2 sandwiches on your plate. You can't put one back. That's worse. That implies rejection. So you eat both, with restraint. 1 bite each, small, poised. You chew like you're being painted. And for one blessed moment, just one, you feel calm, until you hear it. A soft clink behind you, followed by a hissed whisper, "The lemoners are returning." You freeze, because that means the vote is being challenged, and you, accidental tea anarchist, are about to be caught in the crossfire. The lemoners are gathering. You don't see them, not at first, but you feel them, like a sudden drop in air pressure, or the moment before a string snaps on a harp. They move in whispers and citrus undertones, swishing satin and sugared menace. It starts at the far end of the parlor, a murmured conversation between 2 countesses, both wearing sashes in aggressive shades of yellow. Then it spreads, a shared glance, a spoon tapped once against a saucer, the unfurling of a fan with a lemon stitched onto the lacework. The lemon vote was settled, or so you thought. You were wrong, because tea etiquette, much like international diplomacy or competitive embroidery, is never truly settled. A duchess leans in and murmurs something about the inherent brightness of citrus. Another shakes her head, muttering about the treason of tartness. Someone else makes the sign of the scone in defense of cream. You remain very, very still. Because you've already had cream. You've publicly had cream. And now the lemon rebellion is in full swing, and people are repositioning their allegiance mid-sip, like it's the War of the Roses, but with better porcelain. You try to fade into your chair, but chairs, as it turns out, are not camouflage, especially not when they creak as you shift, drawing attention at the exact moment Lady Braxton stands to issue her decree. "I believe," she says, voice clear and bright, "that a second consideration of lemon is warranted in honor of the sun. This is not about the sun. This is about power." The hostess tightens her grip on her teacup, the rim trembling slightly as she raises her brow. "How quaint," she replies. "A citrus review. Shall we alert the seasonal table?" The room teeters. You are in the splash zone. Lady Braxton turns. "Gebers her guest," she says. "You wish she hadn't called you that. You wish she'd used your name, but she doesn't know it. No one here does. You are guest, and that's somehow worse than mistake. What is your position on lemon when revisited?" You blink once, twice. Then you do something very foolish. You speak. "I believe," you say, voice much too small, "that lemon is best, respected from a distance." The room exhales. A duchess titters. A baroness sips with interest. Lady Braxton gives a slow, sharp smile. Neutrality, she purrs. Bold. You've chosen the Switzerland of tea diplomacy. It works. For now. But only because everyone is distracted by the arrival of the confection course. You've heard rumors about it. The final offering. The test of poise under pressure. Because the confection course is filled with danger disguised as sweetness. Jellied roses, meringues that shatter with a breath, and sugar-spun towers that collapse under the weight of eye contact. The tray is brought out. It is massive. A pyramid of glistening sugar, almond domes, candied violets arranged like chess pieces, one thing shaped like a duck in crisis, another like a unicorn with gout, and in the center, the pièce de résistance, a glacéed orange slice dipped in mystery. This is the centerpiece of the course. And you are closest. Again, you reach out because you're supposed to. But the timing is everything. Too early, you seem greedy. Too late, hesitant. You aim for the sacred mid-reach, the rhythm of those born into tea service. And you miss. Your fingers brush the edge of the tray. A candied petal topples. You catch it miraculously with your napkin. But your napkin is still slightly damp from earlier. The petal dissolves into a pinkish smear. You smile and place it aside like a martyr hiding evidence. The pheasant hat girl beside you whispers, "That's how they got rid of Cousin Eloise." You're not sure if she means socially or physically. You don't ask. You select something small, a sugar-frosted bite of unknown texture. It cracks, loudly. The sound is indecent. It echoes across the parlor like a goose being stepped on. Aunt Belgravia lifts her lorgnette. The hostess sighs into her teacup. You are now the cruncher. You chew quietly, slowly, with the haunted eyes of someone reenacting a crime. Then comes the lemon vote conclusion. A subtle reordering of teaspoons signals the decision. The citrus faction has failed. Cream remains supreme for today. There is no applause, just relief. But you are not relieved, because you now notice a servant whisper something to the hostess, and the hostess nods, a tiny nod. A nod that says, someone is about to be tested. Moments later, a footman arrives with a small silver bell. He hands it to you. You blink. The room watches. Would you be so kind, the hostess says, as to ring for closure? You freeze. Because ringing the bell seems simple, but it's not. You must lift the bell gently, not jangle it. You must ring it once, not twice. The tone must be clear, not shrill. The bell is meant to bless the end of the service, not shatter the mood. You raise the bell. Your fingers tremble. You ring it, so softly. The sound is perfect. A delicate chime, like angel breath, filtered through bone china. The room exhales. You've done it. You've survived. You rang with your left hand, the hostess says mildly. Silence. You stare at your hand. It is indeed the left, which in 18th century tea circles is the hand of scandal. The room erupts into the quietest possible chaos. Fans flutter. A man coughs. Someone knocks over a sugar bowl. You set the bell down. You've lost again. And the worst part? You still haven't eaten that duck-shaped confection. You should leave. You should politely excuse yourself. Bow with whatever grace remains clinging to your spirit and retreat into the safety of obscurity. Maybe take up basket weaving or goat herding, something simple, something tealess. But you don't, because no one leaves before the closing toast. You didn't know there was a toast. You didn't expect to be asked to participate. And you certainly didn't expect it to be interactive. The hostess rises. Not fully, just that subtle lift where one seems to float rather than stand. a technique perfected by women whose petticoats have their own personalities. She lifts her glass, shaped like a teardrop, rimmed in gold, and announces, "We shall now express gratitude for the leaves." You resist the urge to look at the fern beside you. It seems relevant. The guests lift their own cups. You do the same, though yours is sticky from a prior biscuit incident. You await the toast. But instead of one speech, the ritual begins. Each guest says a single word. Just one. A word to honor the tea, the occasion, the empire, the biscuits. The person beside you, pheasant hat, whispers, "resilience." Someone across the room follows with fragrance, then temperance. Glory. Balance. Your turn. All eyes fall on you. Your tongue becomes lint. You panic. Your mind suggests moist, then immediately regrets it. You dig deeper. Then you say it. Steep. A pause. Then a soft murmur of acceptance ripples around the room. Steep. It works. Double meaning. Noun and verb. Short, poetic, possibly wise, the word of a survivor. You nod, barely containing the tremble in your saucer hand. The toast concludes. You survive another round. But then, without warning, a small white card appears at your elbow. You didn't see who placed it there. You unfold it. Tea debriefing invitation, immediate. You've been summoned. This is not optional. You rise. Again, the chair betrays you with a slight squeak. You follow the servant down a corridor you don't recognize. One lined with portraits of former tea attendees, most of whom appear to be mid-swoon or staring at something just out of frame with alarm. You're led into a side room. It's cooler here. Darker. A table sits in the center, flanked by three individuals in soft gray lace and expressions that suggest they've judged entire generations before breakfast. Sit, one says, not unkindly. You do. They do not offer tea. This is serious. The woman on the left speaks. We are the Steep Watch. We ensure the ritual remains untainted. You nod. You've been observed. You blink. Your napkin technique, your saucer handling, your refusal to bite the hedgehog-shaped sweet, all noted. The man on the right leans in. Your hand was left. You wince. Do you have an explanation? You hesitate. Then offer the truth. I panicked. There's a pause. Then the center figure, an older man with eyebrows like snowdrifts, smiles faintly. Good, that's the correct answer. You exhale. He continues, do you know why this matters? You shake your head. He gestures to a teacup. Because this, he lifts it, is civilization. The room stills. He places the cup down without a sound. You held the line. You didn't switch to lemon. You toasted with purpose. You said steep. That shows promise. You are stunned. You may return, they say. And next time, bring gloves. You bow. Leave. Float almost. Back into the parlor where everything is somehow unchanged and yet forever different. You rejoin the others just as the hostess announces, the parting petals ceremony shall now begin. Of course there's a petal ceremony, because why end a perfectly exhausting afternoon without ritualized floral distribution? A tray appears, covered in rose petals, each dyed a slightly different shade. The rule is simple. Take one. Just one. But the color you select reveals your entire post-tea standing. Pale pink, graceful, if forgettable. White, pure, possibly suspicious. Lavender, charming but unreliable. Deep red, audacious, for those who stared down scandal and winked. You scan the tray. No red. Of course. You reach for lavender, then hesitate. Reach again. Your fingers land on a soft blush pink. Safe, elegant, mild. You pluck it. The hostess nods. The ceremony concludes. The guests rise one by one. You're handed your coat. Your shoes are returned from wherever shame took them. The door opens. Fresh air. Sweet, blessed, normal air. But before you can flee, someone stops you. The hostess. She leans in, gently, like she's about to offer either praise or a spell. You may return, she says, next season. You blink. That means spring, Pheasant Hat whispers beside you. You nod. You survived. Somehow. And as you walk away, petal in one hand, soul in the other, you realize something terrible. You forgot to compliment the doilies. You've escaped the parlor, but not the aftermath. Because the etiquette of 18th century tea time doesn't end with the last sip. It lingers. Like bergamot on wool, like scandal on lace. And the moment you pass through the iron gate of the hostess's estate, pantaloons slightly askew, petal in hand, and heartbeat slightly offbeat, you realize you still have to write the thank you note. And not just any thank you note. This is a letter of refinement, a genre unto itself. Equal parts apology, praise, legal defense, and ornamental groveling. You trudge home, slowly, as though gravity itself is punishing your saucer sins. Your writing desk greets you like an indifferent creditor. You sit, you stare. The quill trembles in your fingers. Where to begin? Do you acknowledge your errors? Do you pretend the Bell incident was avant-garde? Do you mention that you briefly mistook the hostess's sugar dog sculpture for an actual pet and tried to pet it? So many possibilities, so few socially acceptable words. You dip your quill. Begin. My most honored and graceful lady of the porcelain perch. Off to a good start. Slightly poetic, a little desperate. It was with humblest joy and several internal missteps that I attended your most fragrant and ceremonious gathering yesterday. Fragrant is a safe adjective. No one dislikes fragrant, except maybe the Earl of Vinegar, but he wasn't present. Your choice of lemon abstinence was, in hindsight, not only courageous but ecclesiastically resonant. You're not entirely sure what that means, but it sounds majestic. You continue. Please extend my compliments to the staff, especially the silent footman with the haunted expression. His restraint during my sugar tongue calamity was deeply appreciated. That's honest and humanizing. They love that. I must also apologize for ringing the bell with my left hand. I assure you this was not a statement of dissent, but rather an accidental twitch born of saucer fatigue. Beautiful. You feel tears prick your eyes, either from emotional clarity or the inkwell fumes. You sign with a flourish. Ever your humble steep mate, your name here, if it still has value. You sprinkle a touch of powdered lavender over the drying ink. Not necessary, but it gives the note the illusion of intentional delicacy. You fold it, seal it, send it with your most emotionally stable courier pigeon. And now you wait, but etiquette never rests. Because you now must track the ripple effect. You wander through the local square the next morning. Tea Society members don't just gossip, they strategize. Tea for them is sport. And like all sports, there's post-game analysis. You overhear two gentlemen by the fountain. Did you see the way she buttered the second scone? Like a revolutionary. They shake their heads. It's not admiration. You pass Lady Hemsworth's driver. He won't meet your eyes. That's probably a bad sign. You spot Pheasant Hat again, standing near a bakery. She nods. You nod. The nod is mutual, uncertain, faintly tinged with wartime respect. Then someone clears their throat behind you. A boy, no older than 12, holds out a tiny scroll. You unfurl it. Official notice of table placement review. Oh no, your status is being reconsidered. It's not punishment. Not yet. But it's a review. A formal possibility that at next season's tea, you may be moved further down the table. That's 3 seats away from the sugar basin, 5 seats away from conversational relevance, 7 seats from the future. You return home in despair. And just when you sit down, ready to throw your gloves into a fire of dramatic protest, you hear it. A knock. A soft, deliberate triple tap. You open the door. Pheasant Hat stands there, with her hat and a parcel. She enters without waiting to be invited. Because true tea warriors fear nothing, she hands you the parcel. Inside, a scone, 2 sugar cubes, and a tiny porcelain lemon. You stare. It's a training set, she explains, to help you next time. You blink. There's going to be a next time? She shrugs. Unless you're planning to fake your own death, which I admit has been done. She sits at your table, uninvited. Welcome. Tell me, she says, how much do you know about fork placement? Your heart sinks. Because of course, there's always another test. You boil water. Brew tea. Serve without comment. She nods in approval. You eat the scone, carefully, no crumbs. For a moment there is peace. But in the back of your mind, you know, the next tea event is less than a month away, and they say Lady Braxton is hosting, with imported saucers and dueling fans. And worst of all, a musical interlude. You don't even know the etiquette for music. Do you clap? Do you cry? Do you offer your biscuit in appreciation? You'll find out if you survive that long. The invitation arrives tied with pale ribbon and deep implication. It's scented with bergamot and authority. You don't even have to open it to know Lady Braxton's tea is nigh. You untie it anyway because you're polite and unfurl the parchment. The calligraphy slants just enough to suggest that your attendance is not a request, but a surveillance operation disguised as courtesy. Your presence is requested for an afternoon of considered infusions, tempered pastries, and harmonious reflection. You've never wanted to decline anything more in your life, but you won't. Because if you miss this event, the rumors will bloom like oversteeped chamomile. And those are the worst rumors. Soft, sticky, and inescapable. You begin preparing. There's a checklist. Gloves, both assertive and apologetic. Cravat with embroidered peacocks, safe bet. Hat that whispers, I have read Ovid, but not aloud. Emergency sachet of lavender crumbs for distraction tactics. And most importantly, the fan. Lady Braxton is notorious for her dueling fans. Not actual duels, though one Viscount did leave with a nosebleed in 1748, but verbal spares conducted entirely through lace and flicks. You practice in front of the mirror. Open surprise, swoop disdain, tap agreement, flutter pause flutter, thinly veiled challenge to someone's legitimacy. You are passable. The day arrives with clouds shaped like warnings. You approach Lady Braxton's estate, a looming villa with hedges trimmed into the shapes of extinct birds. A footman greets you with the enthusiasm of a man who's memorized your failures. Inside, the drawing room is already filled. Everything smells expensive. The cushions wear more embroidery than your entire wardrobe. Someone is playing something on a harpsichord that sounds like a duel between restraint and trauma. Lady Braxton perches atop a throne-like armchair beneath an oil painting of herself riding a wolf made of sugar. She gestures. Sit, dear. You do. At the edge of your chair, a safe distance from the tea, until the tea is brought in, and with it, the musician. He enters in silk robes the color of bruised pride, holding what looks like a lute crossed with a legal obligation. He bows. Everyone claps politely. No noise, just fingertips tapping palms like a secret handshake for ghosts. Then he begins to play, a mournful, meandering tune, equal parts dirge and dessert. Your body wants to sway. Don't. Swaying is low class. You let your eyes drift across the room instead. Someone is already tearing up, probably on purpose. Lady Braxton watches the crowd. She's not listening to the music. She's watching how others listen. You adjust your expression to something between reverent and recently blessed. The piece ends. The room exhales. You forget to. Lady Braxton speaks. May we all be softened by strings and strengthened by citrus. There's a toast. Again. You raise your cup. It trembles less than last time. Then the lemon round begins. Again. You're prepared. This time you choose nothing. A refusal is a choice, a statement, a subtle declaration of restraint. Lady Braxton's eyes flick to yours. She knows. You know. It's an even match. Until a young baron makes a noise, a small cough, followed by an unspeakable clink. He's dropped his spoon onto the floor. Gasps. Someone actually faints theatrically. And this is where the rules shift. Because now comes the true trial. How do you react to someone else's error? You cannot look directly at him. That would be cruel. You cannot offer assistance. That would be patronizing. You cannot laugh. That would be suicide. You do the only acceptable thing. You sneeze. Softly, just enough to distract the room. Heads turn. The Baron retrieves his spoon. You save him. He knows. Lady Braxton knows. Pheasant Hat, across the room now, lifts her fan once, very slightly. The fan's signal for well played. You have earned tea currency. Then dessert arrives. Not scones, not cakes. A frozen custard, nestled in frosted porcelain shells, each accompanied by a pedal spoon. A utensil so delicate, the Queen once outlawed them during wartime for fear of morale collapse. You receive yours. Hold it with both reverence and arthritis. One wrong movement and the spoon will snap. One sound of contact with the porcelain and you'll be accused of barbarism. You taste the custard. Cold lavender, slightly hostile. You eat 3 flakes. Just 3. You stop. Everyone notices. Too much would be gluttony. Too little disdain. You've threaded the needle. You're beginning to feel not relaxed, never relaxed, but perhaps less cursed. Until Lady Braxton announces the final act. The silent conversation. Everyone must pair off. Choose a partner. Sit side by side and conduct a full 3-minute dialogue using only fans, expressions, and pastry placement. You freeze. Pheasant Hat stands. She walks toward you. You rise. She extends her hand, not for a shake, but to offer you the second slice of apricot tart. An invitation. You accept. The conversation begins. Tap, flutter, sip, smile, tilt. Your fan says, I am both grateful and slightly wounded. Her fan replies, that is the price of daring. You respond, shall we try again? She, only if the scones are warm. You both nod. The room watches. Lady Braxton raises her teacup. And for the first time in hours, maybe days, you feel seen. Tea is over. Well, technically, it's winding down. But in tea society, nothing simply ends. It must taper gently, like the final note of a sonata or the fade out of a powdered scandal. And you are still here, still seated, fan in hand, apricot tart crumbs barely daring to cling to your gloves. Heart beating the slow, stunned rhythm of someone who knows they've made it farther than expected in a gladiatorial sport involving doilies and silent judgment. Lady Braxton rises. She clinks her spoon once against her glass. The room stills, hushes. She lifts her voice, so soft, so deliberate, you wonder if she's ever actually raised it before. We have, she says, enjoyed a civilized communion. The phrase lands with the gravity of a papal decree, and just like that, the unspoken signal ripples through the room. People begin their departures. You rise with them, trying not to knock over your chair. You almost succeed. It squeaks against the floor like a shoe confessing to fraud. You offer a curtsy, low but not desperate. A few guests nod. Lady Braxton, ever the Sphinx, inclines her head a millimeter. Pheasant Hat is waiting by the door, hands folded like she's the third act of a mystery play. Walk with me, she says. You do. Out the door into the gravel courtyard where carriages await. Ponies shuffle impatiently, and the air is thick with the smell of lavender and mild regret. You're halfway to your ride when you hear it. A footman calling your name, loudly, too loudly. Message for you, he shouts, holding out a scroll. Everyone turns. You take it. You unroll it. It's an official invitation, sealed in lilac wax. You blink. The wax bears the mark of the Society of Interleaf Steepers. You've heard rumors of them, the elite of the elite. They don't just attend tea, they define it. They whisper the rules before the rules are published. They invented fan signals so subtle they've never been properly decoded. Pheasant Hat leans over your shoulder and whispers, "Oh, you're doomed now." You whisper back, "In what way?" She shrugs. Hard to say. They once had a member excommunicated for misidentifying bergamot as lilac. You stare at the invitation. The meeting is tomorrow. You haven't even digested today. But before you can object, before you can even finish blinking, the invitation crumbles to dust in your fingers. Pheasant Hat nods. Yes, it does that. Your carriage arrives. You step in. Inside, the seat cushions are embroidered with small teacups arranged in smug formation. There's a parcel waiting in the seat. You open it. Inside, a tin of loose-leaf tea. No label, just a note. Learn this by scent, then forget you ever received it. You don't know who sent it. You don't know what it means. But you already know it smells faintly of politics. You ride home in silence except for the gentle squeak of the axles and the occasional flap of paper as your fan stirs a breeze across your face. And you think, you've been invited, you've been witnessed, you've almost adapted. At home, you draw a hot bath and try not to replay every conversational fumble, every biscuit fracture, every fan flutter that might have suggested rebellion or emotional vulnerability. You fail. You spend the entire bath narrating an imaginary rebuttal to Lady Hemsworth's implication that you grip your saucer like a rustic. You sleep poorly. Your dreams are full of scones that judge you and teaspoons that point like daggers. You wake before dawn. There's already a letter at your door. This one is unsigned, no wax. Just a folded square of paper that reads, "The teacup is a stage, the biscuit a weapon." Your next roll begins at noon. You inhale sharply. You're not even sure what role you were playing the first time. Noon arrives fast. You're dressed in navy lace and moral ambiguity. You walk through the city, down the winding alleys where the real tea veterans meet, those who remember the era of double saucers and secret spoons. You arrive at an ivy-covered townhouse. No signage, no doorbell, just a small blue thimble nailed to the lintel. You knock 3 times. The door creaks open. A man in velvet hands you a blindfold and says, "Steepers only." You nod. "Put it on." He leads you inside. There's silence, then the scent of bergamot, then the unmistakable rustle of lace over polished wood. You remove the blindfold, and you're in a room filled with the society. No one smiles, everyone nods. A woman in green silk places a single tea leaf in your palm. Prove your worth," she says. You hold it up, sniff, pause, and whisper salon, east-facing slope, picked at moonrise. A silence, then a single clap. Pheasant hat at the back of the room gives you the faintest grin. Someone pours a cup. You sip. The room exhales. You've passed the first test. But the next will arrive when you least expect it. Because tea never forgets. You don't return home that night. Because you're no longer just a guest of tea, you are now an initiate. The Society of Interleaf Steepers has absorbed you, like a biscuit soaking up consequence. You don't ask where the sleeping quarters are. You're simply shown. A narrow cot, a lavender-scented sheet, and a pillow filled with whispers and dried petals. You sleep in pieces. When you wake, there's a teacup on the table. No note, just the liquid. Dark, steaming, ominous. You sip. It's bitter, infused with something that tastes like regret and dried orange peel. This is the morning brew of resolve. You drink it, because now it's your job to inspect, to enforce, to guide the uninitiated through the maze of porcelain expectations and fan code warfare. You are an observer, a keeper of the etiquette flame. Your first assignment comes before breakfast. A sealed scroll, navy wax pressed with the symbol of the sacred saucer. The message is brief. Lady Titherington's third cousin is attempting unaccompanied hosting. Investigate. Intervene if necessary. Discretion required. Lemon suspected. You write at once. Your carriage feels colder now, heavier with purpose. The roads are damp with mist and potential disgrace. Lady Titherington's cousin lives in a modest manor with delusions of grandeur. Too many doilies, not enough judgment. A garden statuary of swans, with hats. You take this as a warning. You enter without knocking. Because steepers don't knock, they appear. You find her, Lady Junie, mid-setup. Alone, a tea table with mismatched linens. A cake stand tilted just enough to imply carelessness. And worst of all, a ceramic lemon bowl at the center, pre-sliced. You feel faint. She turns. "Oh," she says, "I wasn't expecting company." You smile. "Nor were the guests, I imagine." She flushes. "I was only attempting a casual service. Something unstructured." You glance at the teapot. It's blue with a floral lid. "Do you have a sugar basin?" you ask. She hesitates, then retrieves a jar with a screw top. Your soul withers. "Lady Junie," you say softly, "do you understand the implications of unsanctioned citrus in a solo setting?" She fidgets. "I thought it might be refreshing." "Refreshing," you repeat. "Like revolution?" She gasps. "I didn't mean..." You raise a hand. "It's forgivable," you say, "but only once." You remove the lemon bowl, place it in a linen pouch. Leave her with a small card bearing a symbol she doesn't recognize yet. A fan folded twice and dipped in sugar. "Your match is shorn. You'll be reviewed one petite," you say, then disappear into the mist like a consequence in crinoline. Back at society headquarters, you file the report. Infraction: premature citrus engagement. Severity: mildly subversive. Correction: citrus confiscation and veiled threat. Note: suggest beginner's mentorship, possibly prone to tart tendencies. They accept it. You are told to rest. You do not rest. Because T is restless, by the next day you've been invited to co-host a gathering with the steeper matron herself. Her name is Vesper Hillingbury Finch. She is known for inventing the inverted spoon signal and once shamed a bishop with nothing but a cough and a plum tart. The event is called Evening of Fogs and Fortitude. You arrive in gray silk, your gloves dusted in chalked rows. Vesper nods once and hands you a list. It contains 5 names. Each guest is a test. Each guest has a known issue. You must guide without correcting, punish without scolding, judge without speaking. Guest 1, Sir Todrick of Vinneville, famous for his tendency to monologue during clotted cream distribution. You intercept him just as he opens his mouth. Offer him a tart. He accepts, eats, chokes slightly, silence restored. Guest 2, Miss Callia Fornish, known fan dropper, once accused of orchestrated fluttering to signal rivalries mid-scone. You pair her fan with one that squeaks slightly. Not enough to offend, just enough to keep her from deploying it too often. She blushes, stays quiet. You proceed through the guest list. One by one, subtle manipulations. You swap saucers to redirect attention. You reposition cutlery to change conversational flow. You break a biscuit deliberately to draw scandal away from an overpour. By the end of the evening, the table is tranquil. The matron speaks. You are one of us now, she says. You don't smile. You simply fold your napkin once, precisely, and place it at the 12 o'clock position. She sees. She nods. Later in the carriage, you stare out the window. Tea used to be survival. Now it's your element. But with power comes risk. Because there are rumors of a rogue tea circle, one that stirs counterclockwise, one that dunks before permission, one that adds sugar with their bare fingers. They call themselves the Crumblers, and they are watching. You first hear about the Crumblers from a man who eats toast with his hands. This alone should be alarming, but it's his whisper, delivered over a tepid cup of Earl Grey, that really chills you. They're hosting a midnight tea. You blink. He nods solemnly. No fans, no saucers, just mugs, mugs. You nearly drop your teaspoon. The very thought is treasonous. Not only is a midnight tea outside the sacred hours, but mugs, handle forward, bulk ceramic mugs, are the opposite of everything you fought for. They're unmeasured, informal, sturdy. You thank the toast man, his name is probably Reg, and leave shaken. If the Crumblers are real, if their gatherings are spreading, then everything the society has built, every coded flutter, every whisper of lemon, is under threat. You report it, of course. The matron receives your concerns with a narrowed eye and a slow sip of a smoky lapsang. We've heard murmurs, she says, but you are to observe, not engage. Observe. You can do that. You follow the leads quietly. A cryptic chalk mark on a lamppost, a napkin left folded into an unfamiliar shape, a downward triangle, the symbol of dissent. The next midnight, you find yourself in an alley near the edge of the quarter. A candle burns in an old sugar tin. A shadowy figure nods once, then gestures to a crumbling doorway. Inside, it smells like cinnamon and unrest. You expect chaos. You find comfort, cushions, candles, mismatched teacups. There's even a cat curled in a basket of napkins, undisturbed. A table is set, but not set. No doilies, no alignment, no fan traps. Just tea. A man serves you without a title. A woman pours without eye contact. No one waits for a cue. They simply exist and talk, casually, honestly, loudly even. Someone laughs. It's Nice. Dangerously nice. You sip your tea. It's not labeled, but the taste is warm. Slightly herbal. It's not about proof or posture. It's just about feeling better. You stay longer than you meant to. When you leave, a small woman in a cardigan, dear heaven, hands you a scone wrapped in wax paper. For later, she says. You'll need it. The silence always feels louder after this. She's right. When you return to society headquarters, everything feels tighter. The hallways echo more. The paintings stare more. The teacups gleam like surveillance tools. You try to brush it off. You busy yourself with assignments. There's a scandal involving Lady Titherington again. This time, she served almond tarts before finger sandwiches. A tactical error. You handle it, coolly, professionally, without a single raised eyebrow. But still, your fingers itch for the warmth of a mug. The simplicity. The matron notices. She calls you in. Her tea is untouched. You've been quiet, she says. You nod. She leans in. Have you heard of the crumblers? You hesitate. A blink too long. She exhales. They believe tea is for comfort, not control. You don't reply. They want to change everything, she says. And we preserve. A pause. She continues softer now. They're not entirely wrong. You look up. That's unexpected. Her voice drops to a whisper. I was one of them once in my reckless youth, before the sugar spoon broke. You don't ask. You don't need to. There's a knock at the door. A steward enters. Emergency. You rise. Follow him down the hall. A teacup has cracked during service. Spontaneously, everyone is gathered around the table. It sits there, split perfectly down the middle. No one touched it. No heat change. No impact. Just a fracture. The room murmurs. A sign, someone whispers. The matron arrives, sees the break. She turns to you. Deliver the replacement, she says. You lift the backup cup, walk slowly, set it down in the empty spot. Everyone watches. You pour, stir once, step back. Silence. Someone coughs. You turn to leave. But then a guest stands. He holds up a biscuit. It's round, unbuttered, plain. He breaks it in half. Crumb cascade. Deliberate, provocative. A challenge. He sets the pieces on his saucer, crumbs spilling onto the tablecloth. Lady Braxton gasps audibly from the other end of the table. You realize what you're witnessing. The first public crumb. He stares at you. You stare back. And for the first time, you feel the shift. Not rebellion, not disrespect, just change. You say nothing. But later in your quarters, you write a note. You fold it into the shape of a lemon slice and leave it on the matron's desk. It reads, the tea is cracking, and maybe that's not a bad thing. The matron does not respond to your note, not directly. But the next morning, when you reach the Hall of Infusions, your teacup is different. It's slightly heavier, handmade, not society standard, no crest, no gold rim. You lift it, no one else reacts, but someone knows. Because in this place, tea isn't just tea. Every detail is a statement, a signal, a veiled rebellion. And your cup, a little irregular, a little flawed, is whispering something dangerous. Change is being tolerated. Barely. You sip, it's peppermint. No bergamot, no judgment, just clarity. You go about your day. Your tasks now include more mentoring. You're asked to guide a new initiate through the steps of proper biscuit elevation, the art of lifting a treat without suggesting need or emotional attachment. You teach them the three-point finger hold, the side glance nibble, the don't crumble under pressure mantra. But the initiate asks something bold. Waki, ni, why do we do it this way? You open your mouth with the stock answer about civility, grace, shared values, and then you stop. You don't have an answer anymore, not one you believe. Instead, you say, because for a long time, it was the only way people knew how to be gentle. They blink. You both sit there, holding dry biscuits that suddenly feel like relics. By evening, you're summoned again, this time to the room of seasonal revisions. It's where new etiquette rules are drafted, voted on, edited, and concealed. You've never been inside, very few have. The matron stands at the head of a long table. In front of her, scrolls, ink pots, single cracked sugar swan under glass. You sit beside her. There's no greeting, just work. She points to a scroll titled, Proposed Addendum on the Use of the Mug in Controlled Environments. Your eyebrows rise. She nods. A test, she says. You read, it's not perfect. It includes 11 exceptions, 3 disclaimers, and a clause that bans chipped mugs on rainy days. But it's a start. You look at her. You wrote this? No, she says. You will. You spend the night drafting and redrafting. You submit a final version that begins not with a rule, but a story about your first sip of tea poured by accident, about survival, about warmth, about how etiquette, like infusions, can adapt. You sign it with your tea name, not your real one. That's long since been replaced. Your tea name is Echo of Ceylon. The matron smiles just barely. Fitting. It's approved. Not enacted, not published, but archived. Waiting for the right moment. That night, you find Pheasant Hat waiting outside your quarters. She's holding 2 mugs, real ones. One has a small chip. The other has a painted frog on it. You choose the frog. You sip in silence. She says, they're holding a crumb council next week. You nod. She continues, they want you there, not as a spy, not as a convert, just as yourself. You stare into your mug. It's not fragile. It's not elegant, but it's true. You say yes, because you no longer want to choose between legacy and sincerity. You arrive at the council's location. It's a greenhouse this time. Warm, overgrown, filled with potted herbs and seating arrangements that defy any known protocol. The crumblers welcome you. Some wear gloves, some don't. One wears a napkin as a scarf. They nod. No one tests you. No one grades your sip. You sit beside the cardigan woman. She hands you a card. It reads, the tea is ours now. Let's use it kindly. A toast is raised with mismatched mugs, some chipped, some cracked, all full. They sip. So do you. And then you stand. You offer something. From memory, a reverse. For every broken saucer, there's a stronger cup. For every flinch at form, a sip that lifts us up. They clap. A crumb lands in your lap. You don't brush it off. Because now you understand. The etiquette of tea time was never about rules. It was about protection, a soft structure built around something too quiet to defend itself. But now it can be both. Structure and softness, grace and growth. You return to the society the next morning. The matron waits in the corridor. No words. She hands you a new invitation. This one has no wax seal, just your name, and one word beneath it, host. You stare. She nods once. You've earned it. It takes you 4 days to plan your tea. Not because you're uncertain, but because you're careful. And because this one, the first tea you'll host, isn't just an event. It's a statement, a bridge, an offering. You select your location with precision, a small conservatory just off the edge of the society's domain, with creeping ivy and windows that leak sunlight like secrets. It's neutral ground, technically society approved, but once used by the crumblers for a clandestine scone exchange. The guest list is delicate. 5 society members, 5 crumblers, 2 unaligned observers, and 1 matron seated under a condition of utter silence unless provoked by sugar-related treason. You send the invitations, each one handwritten, each one scented with bergamot and cardamom, a combination previously outlawed for being emotionally overwhelming. The responses arrive, hesitant at first, then firm. They're coming. Now comes the hard part, the table. You place doilies, but only 3, 1 at each end and 1 in the middle. The rest? A simple linen runner embroidered with vines and a single-stitched lemon at the corner. A symbol, not a weapon. Each teacup is different, on purpose. Some porcelain, some stoneware, some barely cups at all. You arrange them carefully. The biscuits, a curated blend. Delicate lavender shortbread next to crumbling oat cakes. Each placed deliberately, each a risk. You prepare 2 teapots. One is the society blend, strong black with a hint of orange. The other a crumbler creation, green, wild, floral, and faintly mysterious. You will offer both. When the day arrives, you wear gray silk, with boots, a quiet compromise. Guests arrive one by one. The society members arrive in pairs, gloved and sharp-eyed. The crumblers drift in solo, cardiganed, curious, possibly carrying pastries they made themselves. There are no greetings at first, just glances. Then someone, Lady Hemsworth, sniffs the crumbler tea. She sips. She nods. Pheasant Hat arrives late. As always, she brings a fig tart the size of a legal precedent and sets it on the table like a gauntlet. You begin their tea. There is no fan signal. There is no speech. You just lift the pot. Pour for the person across from you. They pour for the next, and so it goes. Quiet, natural, unforgivingly human. Conversation stirs. Someone mentions the texture of the oatcakes. Someone else says mug without flinching. You say nothing. You just pass the sugar 1 cube at a time and let the table shape itself. There's a small disaster when a crumbler drops their spoon. But Lady Braxton, yes, she came, covers it with her foot. You saw nothing, she mutters. Someone giggles. A giggle. In the sacred halls of tea. You feel lightheaded. Then the matron clears her throat. Everyone stills. I have brought something, she says. She reaches into her bag, pulls out a mug. It's modest, blue, hand-painted with a slightly crooked saucer pattern. She sets it down and says, "This belonged to my grandmother. She drank from it every day, before the rules, before the society, before I forgot what tea was for." No one speaks, not because it's forbidden, but because there's nothing that needs adding. She pours from both teapots into her mug, a blend, a union. She drinks and smiles. You serve tarts. You break the shortbread in half. Offer the larger piece to Lady Hemsworth. She accepts, without blinking. And when you reach for your own scone, a big imperfect thing, you do not use the tongs. You just lift it and eat. Crumbs fall, and no one dies. By the end of the gathering, the guests mingle. Some whisper, some argue. Someone invents a new spoon signal for respectful dissent. You think it involves tapping twice and folding a napkin into a pigeon. No one can confirm. As the sun fades, people leave in 2s and 3s. No one storms out. No one faints. No one draws a fan. You stay to clean. You find a note tucked under one of the mugs. Thank you for remembering what tea feels like. No signature, but you recognize the handwriting. It's Reg, the toast man, a crumbler after all. You sit with the empty teacups, and you breathe, not as a guest, not as an initiate, but as a host. And when the final light fades, you lift the last remaining biscuit and eat it whole, without ceremony, because you can. Because now you decide when the tea ends. You don't host another tea for weeks, not because it went badly, quite the opposite. It went well, suspiciously well. So well that the society decided not to discuss it because acknowledgement might give it momentum. And the crumblers, they whispered, but softly, like the idea of etiquette being kind was too fragile to say out loud. But you feel it, a shift, subtle, like the difference between warm and warming. People now linger after tea, just a little longer. Napkins fold themselves less precisely. Someone even laughed during a toast, with teeth showing, and no one demanded exile. You begin collecting teacups. Mismatched, flawed, storied. One has a chip shaped like a comma. One has a handle that loops wrong. One, you swear, purrs slightly when filled with lemon verbena. Each one makes you feel real. You invite guests, not attendees. You serve both society blends and crumbler brews. You allow jam first and cream first at the same table and live to tell the tale. One day, a new initiate is assigned to you. She's nervous, elbows too sharp, fingers trembling when lifting the biscuit. You take her aside, pour her tea, not from the gold-rimmed pot, but from the chipped one with the crooked lid and a frog etched on the base. She sips, eyes wide. You say, here's the only rule that matters. Don't let the tea scare you. She breathes. And in that breath, you see the next era unfold. Somewhere, the matron retires. She doesn't say why, but her last note is short. Keep it gentle, and she signs it not with her title, but with a drawing of a teaspoon and a flower. Pheasant Hat visits often now. She doesn't bring scandal, she brings biscuits. You invent a new fan signal together. It means, I disagree, but I'm listening. You teach it to others. It spreads. The society holds its next seasonal gathering in a garden, not a hall. People sit on cushions. There's a bench with no assigned placement. No one faints. You wear linen, not silk, and shoes that forgive you. Lady Braxton brings her own tea. She insists it's medicinal. It smells like anise and chaos. You sip it anyway. You publish your own guide. Not a rule book, a companion. It's called Tea Without Panic. It sells surprisingly well. Some call you a reformer, some a traitor. Some just send flowers anonymously with notes that say things like, I dropped my biscuit and no one noticed. It was perfect. You save every note. And then one evening, just before dusk, a knock at your door. You open it to find a small parcel. Inside the sugar spoon, carved from wood, a little lopsided, wrapped in lace, and a card. Use it when they forget. No signature, but you know. You walk into your tea room, light candles, set the table. No name cards, no polished silence, just chairs, cups, time. A new initiate will arrive tomorrow, and you'll serve them your favorite tea. No tests, no fan games, no fear, just warmth. And if they crumble their biscuit, you'll smile, because that's what it's for. And now at last, the table is empty. The teacups rest in quiet clusters. The crumbs, yes, those glorious, unapologetic crumbs, dot the linen like stars across a calm night sky. A kettle cools gently, forgotten in the way only truly good things are. The candlelight flickers low, and you feel the hush settle in. You did it. You survived a world of whispered judgments, coated spoons, and pedal spoons held like weapons. You danced the dance of lemon and cream, endured the scrutiny of silent matrons, and somehow navigated the duel between lace and law. More than survived, really. You softened the sharp edges. You gave room for breath. You held the cup without trembling. And in doing so, you reminded everyone that tea is not meant to be a test. It's meant to be a comfort, a kindness, a shared pause in a spinning world. So now, as you sit in the stillness, your hands warm around a simple mug, not porcelain, not gold-rimmed, just yours. You exhale. Let the rest of the world worry about saucers and signals. Let the rules fade like steam from the spout. Right now, there is only this gentle quiet, this subtle sweetness lingering on the tongue, and the knowledge that you found your way through an impossible etiquette maze and came out kinder. And in this final moment, no fans, no toasts, no folded napkins, you are exactly where you should be. Home, wrapped in softness, cradled in calm, and drifting ever so gently toward sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.